annual photo on the south side of the building on the stairs. So, let's go.
They did the job.
Yeah, sure.
They said if we, I said if we both kill them, yeah, that's good.
You bring your makeup guy and I'll
PowerPoint I'm gonna go through to introduce the resolution. It's like super brief about what we asked in our RFPs, and then I'll introduce you guys and open the floor to questions. Okay, thank you.
We need a little
Yes, you for sure.
So you guys think about going golfing?
We were kicking it up.
It's gonna be chilly and wet, isn't it?
Well, you know where we start?
That's
We're still here. Check out my knees. Can you see your ID for
Besides the chairs.
He's done.
Maybe he'll get there.
If you do, you get the contract for sure.
Okay, we'll reconvene. Invocation will be by Phil Undershoots. Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Jerry Biller. Please stand.
Lord Jesus, we come to you tonight acknowledging your goodness. And we pray for wisdom tonight, that you would guide and direct our decisions. I pray this all in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Need a motion for approve the minutes? Okay, any questions, corrections, or additions? If not, we vote now.
Mr. Wade.
18 yes, 1 abstain. That's by majority vote.
I know, but
Public comment limited to 5 minutes per person. Anybody wish to speak now?
Aaron Webster, Bruce. The question that I have is to why are you all here? I often wonder this as I attend various meetings. Why are you here in these seats, in this room, week after week, month after month? It really is a question of why. It sure seems that there's a majority of you that are running agendas. You aren't looking out for the public's best interest, and you certainly aren't looking out for the least of these here in this community. Every month before this meeting starts, some of you take turns saying an invocation, and I cringe at every portion of this meeting when it comes up, and it needs to stop. Government for all people dies a little bit every time this body prays before a meeting. First, prayer here by this body is not necessary. It's inappropriate and it is divisive. Second, it's beyond hypocritical. You pray for things that you are not willing to change, and you pray for ways to behave that you are unwilling to behave. And you certainly do not care or have concern for the people that Christians, that I myself do consider myself to be, we are reminded to be concerned with at every turn. The least of these. Many of us have asked out in the community since the last special board meeting, who you really intend to sell the property to. We wonder what sort of hidden agenda you have up your sleeves. We wonder what you have against outsiders looking at housing for a segment of the population that needs us to be looking out for them. And we wonder why a riverfront view is something you are unwilling to share. Your questions were weak, your concerns were weaker, and your decision to vote to accept the resolution as presented to not allow Impact 7 to do a feasibility study at the same time as you pursue the asbestos testing and possible demo costs says so much about the character of you as individuals. You pray before this meeting, and yet you are blind to the realities before you. You get pet projects taken care of, get people in certain positions, but spend our money in the most foolish ways possible and tear down a building that possibly could be saved, saving us a ton of money. The members of this body that voted against possible housing and yes to immediate tear down are disingenuous when they say they are fiscally and morally responsible. Your attack of the city administrator for caring about this county is shameful. He is a citizen and a taxpayer of this county, and he has more ethics and care for others in his pinky than all of you here. Every meeting, you all show me who you are, and I believe you. There is a core group of you holding the majority on this board that are unwilling to take us down a road your constituents by and large want you to go down. We are expecting more from you, but you have your agendas to run, and the majority of this county sees that. You are concerned with, there are agenda items that are concerning tonight. One being $25,000 for ATV signs that have not gone through property or finance committees, but are coming from ARPA funding. Second, if the bleachers can't be purchased due to an error, why not put that $40,000 back in the kitty? Instead, the fairgrounds will get the concrete today and bleachers next year, and need another $20,000 to get the concrete approved for as it is. Why not spread the love around? Third, your closed session item appears that it is just to plan what is going on with the building, which seems concerning as that is not a closed session item. I've been using the expression that you are unable to walk and chew gum at the same time. Let Impact 7 do its thing and you carry on with the costs of the tear down of the building. There are two options as to why you can't do both of those things at the same time. Either you have a better secretive buyer requiring you to tear down the building, or you don't care about members of this community needing housing. And I'm willing to wager it's very likely both. Time will tell, but I don't think the majority of this county is going to be pleased when we know the answer.
Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else? Public comment is closed. Okay, discussion and possible motion, law enforcement proclamation. That's brought up. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States has designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week, and whereas a member of the law enforcement agency of Rusk County play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of Rusk County, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties responsibility, hazards, and sacrifices of your law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas during National Police Week and throughout the year, Rusk County recognizes and appreciates the critical contributions and sacrifices made by members of law enforcement at all levels, and honors their courage and dedication. And whereas it is known that 245 officers were killed in the line of duty in 2022, and many others were seriously assaulted in the performance of their duties, our community joins with other counties, cities, and towns to honor their memory and sacrifice and pay homage to their legacy of excellence and devotion to duty. Now therefore, I, Alan Rathsack, Chairman of the Rusk County Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim May 14th to the 20th, 2023 as National Police Week, and Sunday, May 14th, 2023 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, in honor of those law enforcement officers who through their courageous deeds have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. May we always remember that they do on a daily basis to defend and protect our rights and safety. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and affix a seal of the County of Rusk this 25th day of April 2023. Mr. Schmidt. Okay. There's nothing.
We don't need a motion on that. Well, that's just a proclamation, so we'll just jump around.
Proclamation, okay. That's. Okay, now we're Jump River Electric easement request at Trails End.
So this was brought to my attention from Charmaine. Rusk County, Jump River Electric is redoing their lines. In order to redo their lines, they need to go through a portion of what Trails End. So what's in front of you is an easement that gives them an easement that's 30 feet on the east side of Trails End to allow them to construct and install those transmission lines.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any questions pertaining to this? No questions? Oh, Mr. DeSalle.
Rich, is there already an easement there? Do we already have a line there, or is this a new line they're building?
I believe they're upgrading the current line that's there that goes through. So, correct.
Any other questions? Oh, okay, you can vote now then. Yes, passed by majority vote. I am moving number 7 up to the next resolution, which is authorizing the phases of design phase of the Rusk County Jail project. Go ahead. Read the motion. Read the motion. Motion and a second.
Okay, so in February, Jeff and George and I brought to the board our desire to move forward with constructing a new jail after we received the results of the Wold facility assessment. So I just want to recap really quick what we advertised for. We put out an RFQ and an RFP. The RFP was for construction management services and the RFQ was for architectural and engineering services. We asked that both firms advise the county through all project phases from operational and architectural plan and schematic design through the construction and renovation phases and post-construction activities. The scope of services we were looking for with our architectural and engineering firm was to establish an operational and architectural program, including operational requirements, size, construction cost, and operational costs. With schematic design, creation of code-compliant architectural drawings to scale that include floor plans, site plan, building elevations, selected building sections to indicate key interior heights, and other drawings as needed to convey design intent. We also asked for preparation of the following public relations, colored and annotated floor plans, and up to 3 3D color exterior and 3 3D color interior renderings. We also asked for construction and project cost estimate, preliminary staffing plan and budget, a life cycle cost analysis, and design and construction schedule. The scope of services for our construction manager included pre-construction, so reviewing project materials, analyzing and providing input on constructability of proposed conceptual design, site investigation, phasing, etc., providing preliminary construction cost estimates, schedule and budget requirements, advising the county through construction or pre-construction on selection of materials, building systems and equipment, and conducting regular progress meetings. During renovation, construction, and post-construction, this is a high-level overview of what we asked for. Providing administration of contracts, coordinating activities and responsibilities of contractors, determining that the work of each contractor is being performed in accordance with the requirements of the contract documents, scheduling and coordinating the sequence of moving county staff and equipment during the renovation phases, and managing the transfer of building operations to the county and providing the county with assistance through warranty periods. So for our responses for the RFQ for architectural engineering services, we received 2. The first was from Wold Architects and Engineers out of St. Paul, who conducted our facility analysis. And the second response was from Venture Architects based out of Milwaukee. We also received 2 proposals for our construction manager RFP. The first was from Samuel's Group based out of Wausau, and the second, Market and Johnson, and they have offices in Eau Claire, La Crosse, and Stillwater, Minnesota. So we had a committee consisting of me, the board chair, the sheriff, and the jail administrator. And we reviewed each of the proposals with the listed criteria here. The firm's background in jail construction, their experience working with governmental agencies, specifically the DOC, similar jail projects they had done, the scope of the services they offered, their communication plan, personnel and roles within the project team, their proposed scope of work, proposed project schedule, and their proposed fee. We held interviews last week, which consisted of a 45-minute interview presentation hybrid and then a 15-minute Q&A at the end. And each member of the interviewing committee, the 4 of us, graded each interview. So our recommendation is to enter into contracts with the Venture Architects for our architectural and engineering services and Samuel's Group for construction management services. And the only thing we are asking for tonight is to enter into contracts for the design phase of the project. So I just want to make it clear that we are not asking tonight to build a new jail. We're asking to move into the next step, which is to investigate building a new jail. So I would like to introduce Kurt Berner from the Samuels Group, Corey Beyer from Venture Architects, and then we all, I think, remember probably Brad Hoover from the Department of Corrections. And they are here to answer any and all questions that you may have.
Evening, everyone. Any questions? I just want to clarify, when we talk about design phase, there's multiple phases in the design. And what the proposal here is to get you through schematic design and elevations and a communications plan. And then it's a stepped process. So I put a schedule together here for Asha to share with you. This is part of our presentation to the committee. You are about at that first yellow bubble in the beginning of the process, right? So there's a lot of work to be done. Most of the counties that we work with haven't done a sizable project for quite some time, and most of them haven't built a jail in quite some time. And typically building a jail isn't something that everyone's excited to do, but it's a necessity, and you've gotta identify what's the best way to go about doing that. And the schedule that we have up there has two key milestones, and both of them are board approval. The one that you see that's closest to the left-hand side is to proceed with the project in its entirety. The one that's further to the right is the one that talks about actually borrowing money for the project, okay? So what we're looking to propose today is that we identify a space program, we identify an actual floor plan, detailed floor plan that shows circulation, shows number of cells, shows the number of receivers, establishes what that floor plan looks like, the location of where that building will be on this campus, and then a cost associated with that. And when we say a cost associated with that, a cost for the project to build it in its entirety, total project cost, as well as what's it gonna cost your taxpayers on their tax bill. Because that's the real number, right? How's it gonna impact those individuals to be able to deal with that? So, the process to be able to get to that, when I say communications plan, it does include communications to all of your taxpayers. And what we do is we generate a letter after we've identified all of this work has been completed, generate a letter to all of the tax-paying addresses that you have in Rusk County. They get a letter that identifies why you're considering a project. It's encouraging them to reach out to you, the board members, to share their ideas and thoughts on the project and answer any questions. We create a website. The website will give all of the technical data in regards to the deficiencies of your jail, the proposed solution, and the impacts of those solutions. We also give an opportunity for those taxpayers to come to community meetings. So we typically have a handful of them, 3 or 4 of them, where Corey and I will attend a community meeting to be able to give a brief presentation. We like to keep it to 20 to 25 minutes. And then we have some questions and answers. If somebody has some questions about it, we can then respond to them. And it's been very, very effective to use this communication plan because people wanna know what's happening. It's a complete transparent process for your taxpayers to understand the decision-making process that you're going through. And that's what we would enter into for the value that she showed here on the PowerPoint. After that process, you then make a decision to move into the next phase of design, which would be design development and construction documents. There's still design that needs to be completed after that phase to enter into construction. So the amount of time to be able to get the full design phase is about a year. And then your construction process, depending on how many phases we have to break it into, could be anywhere from 20 to 24 months long. So you're talking about a process that's years away before you're gonna occupy your new jail. We want you to understand that we're gonna take it in small steps. It's not something that you're making a decision tonight to spend millions of dollars. You're taking in individual steps to be able to collect the data that you may have questions on. But what are we building? How are we building it? How are we gonna go about paying for it, sort of a deal. So, website is up here. This is a website that we use for Trempealeau County. If you wanna take a look at it, when, on your own time, it's Trempealeau County Justice, what is it? TrempealeauCountyJusticeCenter.com. And, when you're bored at home and you don't wanna watch American Idol, you can jump on this and click around and take a look at that. But it's gonna show you the data that you would have. We would use the same formula. The video that she's got there is a video that we would show, so that the taxpayers can see what the proposed solution would be. Questions? Yes, sir.
If we enter into contract with you, you're not doing this for free though, right? There's costs associated, even if we decide to not go on with construction, there will still be costs associated with.
So the cost that she was asking you to approve tonight, that $499, that would get you to the completion of this. If at the end of that phase.
$499,000.
Correct. If at the end of that phase, you, the board, decide that you're not gonna proceed with it, at that point, then there would be no additional charges.
It's a lot of money to spend if we don't know for sure for the project.
Yeah, it's a commitment. The thing about the money to be able to spend that is that I want you to understand how many months this is gonna take to accomplish just this first phase. We're probably talking about a 6 to 8 month duration to be able to get that done. We're not talking about a napkin sketch. There's gonna be many iterations and options explored on this campus in regards to what makes the most sense from a first cost bricks and mortar and a cost for efficiency for the staff element. So a lot of work that's gonna go into this first phase.
Any other questions?
There'll be additional charges then, after you get done with this first phase, and you go into
Yep. Once you get done with what we're calling the communications plan, you will still have the floor plan. That floor plan will be what we move into the next phase of designs called design development. At that point, you're gonna start to see all of the deep details start to get inputted into there. All the mechanical, electrical components happen in that DD phase, and the construction document phase is when we start to bring all the specifications together. So the way the project will be delivered, it will be a competitive bid process because you're dealing with public dollars. The end of that construction document phase, there's an advertisement for bid. We break it up into multiple bid categories, so that we can encourage as many local bidders as possible. And then that bid process will come in to identify what the true hard bid cost is. We will be giving you budgets along the way at the end of each one of those phases. But then the second board approval is when you're going to accept those bids. So at the end of your communications plan, that's when you're all gonna make the decision of, are we going to borrow money and how much money are we gonna borrow? That would be that authorization for the sale of those bonds. That would be the first board meeting. The second board meeting is then, are we going to award those contracts to the contractor to proceed with construction?
So on that schematics, that 500,000 gets us to what color?
It would get you to the board bonding approval, that first white box.
So of that $500,000, do you have like a breakdown?
You wanna go back to that slide, Ashley? So Ventures, so understand the scope of work what's happening is that Ventures team and Corey can explain to you what they do on the design side. From Samuel's group side, we're gonna be dealing with all the pre-construction pricing and all the communication plan, the website, the public meetings, all the correspondence to the community, and then Corey, you can explain the design side.
So up front, they'll do a building analysis of the existing facility, see if there's any renovation, what we can do with existing, as well as we'll start programming. We meet with all the departments throughout this campus, what their needs are, future needs are, take a look at those. We go basically a room by room program, size it to whatever needs to be into that room. And that way we get the size of the building, and then we start with that. Plus with that, we'll do some concepts to see how it fits on this campus, if it does or doesn't, where it works. And then moving into schematics, that's where we start getting the floor plan, see the room types, where they're located, the adjacencies, building elevations, we'll do some renderings, et cetera, how the building's gonna look, how it looks on the campus, and also in the communications plan, as Kurt showed you what we did at Trempealeau, we'll do a fly around so you can see how it is contextual within the site.
What I'm asking, I guess, is of that $349,000, what comprises that exactly? How does that break down to fees? For the sake of transparency, we don't want, anybody to think we have some kind of covert agenda here. So we would like to, can you break that down?
Well, we had it broken down into two phases. We split it up into phase 2 and 3 for the RFQ. So a portion of that is, I think it was like $114,000 for concepts, building analysis. We have the engineers come in, and we got to pay for them too to come on site and go through the building, etc. And then the other portion would be for the schematic design, and that's when it's going into a little more detail. So those are the two essential breakdowns of that.
It's in this handout.
based on hourly rates, isn't it?
Yeah, you gotta understand what you're paying for here is professional services to get to a point so you can see what you're talking about constructing and then the cost associated with it. And the way that I do my best to explain to board members, because maybe a fair amount of you have never tackled a project of this size, right? So to reference something that you may have done, you may wanna build a garage, right? So most of you are used to talking to the contractor and saying, I wanna build a garage. And for a few hours, they'll put together a floor plan on a garage and give you an elevation. The level of detail that goes into a jail, I want you to understand, the design compared from a garage to a jail is day and night. There are professional engineers, professional architects that are working on those details to be able to identify how that facility needs to be designed and constructed, and it has to be in compliance with all of the DOC requirements, has to be in all compliance with the International Building Code. There's a lot that goes into that for us to identify that what we show you can actually be constructed, and then to give you dollars associated with that as well in regards to the budget. So, a lot of work that's tied into that. Yes, sir.
This group has looked at several different scenarios as far as the building project. Probably the last one we looked at was tearing off the front of this building and going from there. Is that your starting point, or are you looking at other?
We are gonna explore any and all options. So we did see Wald study, and Wald study did show what you're referencing there. Our intention is to look at any option. There are some key components about a jail, right, that you gotta be aware of. Where the jail is located and how it connects to courts is very, very important. Those are some of the elements that we're gonna dive into in regards to what makes the most sense to build. The other thing that's tied into that is how do we keep your jail functional? So there are some components in regards to how you phase a project that can make it not the best viable option because you don't wanna house your inmates out of county and impact those sorts of things. So to answer your question, we are gonna start with some of the options that Wald has talked about. We will probably bring some other ideas to the table that we've used at other counties, and we will, it's a brainstorming session, right? So it's getting all the engineers around the table, architects, county staff, and be able to come up with 2 or 3 options that we can narrow it down to and then bring it back to you for standing committee and boards to weigh in on. So. Yes, sir.
Sir, I have a question for Samuel's group.
Yep.
On this handout here, it says, based on a $28 million project, the construction manager's fee is limited to $812,000.
Correct.
Just below that, because I don't see a time limit on here, it says reimbursement expenses not to exceed a fee of $72,000 a month.
Correct.
If it runs 12 months, that's another $840,000.
Correct. So that is referencing, I wanna clarify that scope of services. That is referencing in the RFP, that is during the construction phase. Okay, so the $800,000 was based on a $28 million project. We had to do so it was an apples for apples from both CMs. We're saying, if it was $28 million, what is your fee to be able to do all of your services from beginning to end? What we're saying is, we're only gonna carve out a piece of that to get through this first phase of the pre-construction for $150. Now, if you proceed, the $150 will be part of that $812. Okay, so you're not paying the $150 plus the $812. The $150 is part of the $812. It's part of our fee that would have been included in the entire project, okay? The reimbursables, there are reimbursables that we call general conditions. Those elements are temporary heat on the job site, builder's risk, all different components that a bidder is not going to have included in their number, because we're gonna carry that on behalf of you, the owner. That is a reimbursable that then comes back. We don't mark it up. It's a reimbursable that passes through, and that 72,000 is an average in regards to what we see monthly based on the duration of the project. So to your point, it was a identified quantity per month, and then we're gonna have to identify what the scope is for the duration.
And it's hooked probably to performance too. Like if you sign a contract that the jail will be built in 2 years,
Yep.
remodeled.
Mm-hmm.
After that 2 years, that's 24 months. then is there some kind of a performance thing where there's a penalty? Or does the $72,000 a month just keep going?
Oh, no. In the 72,000 was a lump sum, was a number per month. We will have a lump sum number once we identify the scope of the project, right?
Oh, so it could
We-
change here.
Yeah, we will give you a scope, because here's what happens is, if we decide we're gonna tear off that part of the building, that's a 3 to 4 month duration, right? If we don't have to tear off that part of the building, we just save 4 months, because we're gonna start building the building somewhere else, right?
Oh, okay.
So before you approve any of the next phases, all of that dollar amount will be quantified in a total project cost, okay? So our goal is to get through this phase, so you have a total project cost, and you're not gonna have to worry about all these little pockets of money that are sitting out there. It's gonna be a one total project number, but we're then gonna come back to administration and say, if this is what the project cost is, and when I say project cost, it's professional fees, it's contractors' fees, it's all of the furnishing components that tie into that, all of the, costs that you're gonna have for permitting and those sorts of things. There'll be a total project cost that we bring back to you.
And that'll be a breakdown, Tom,
Yep.
just like you asked about.
Absolutely. You'll see a summary of the entire project. That's when you're mixing bricks and mortar with professional services, all that will be in a total project budget. Yep.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes, that first $500,000 here then will bring us up to this, like, in your timeline here, up to the borrowing.
Yep, so here's what happens, right? Most of you right now are struggling with $28 million is a lot of money, right? We don't know if that's the right number. We don't know what we're building, and we're not real confident to sign on and say, we're gonna build a $28 million jail. Fair to say, that's where everybody's sitting right now. The phase that we're talking about is gonna give you confidence in all of the details surrounding what you're building, where you're building it, how you're gonna pay for it, and then you're gonna share it with all of your constituents, okay? Transparency.
So in
Right.
essence, we're gonna give you $500,000 to help us feel good about spending the 28 million?
That's the goal. That's the goal. My point is that you have to pay for services to identify what you can all agree on, because around the room, if I asked all of you to tell me what you're building, you're gonna give me a different vision of what you're building, right? So it's about building consensus with this board to identify that your master plan took the jail to the top of the heap, right? You looked at all your needs in the county, the master plan said jail's number one, but it hasn't identified exactly where you're building it and all the details that are in it. You're in the next phase, right? So we're not coming to you and saying, hey, we need you to sign a great big check today, but we're saying $500,000 is a big number, right? It's not as big as 28 million. And the logic behind that is you're using the funds wisely to step into more details and have more feedback and then get the community engaged. So.
You know, where's the $500,000 coming from?
Capital projects.
She'll let leave us capital projects.
Is that the money that we're supposed to borrow next year?
So yeah, we would reimburse
That capital
ourselves
project?
out of borrowing.
So we don't have a $500,000 right now, we have to borrow $500,000.
Well, we would have it in our fund balance, but the idea would be that if this project moves to the next phase, we would reimburse ourselves with bond money in order to spread those costs out over the life of the project, or the building.
Any other questions? Mr. Hanson?
After we spend that $500,000, are we gonna have choices? Or are you gonna decide?
I'm not gonna decide
That's the way they
anything.
go.
I'm not gonna decide anything. I'm gonna tell you right now, we're gonna make several recommendations
Yeah.
based on the history that we've done on counties throughout the Midwest. And then we're gonna let you guys make the decisions, okay? And that's the thing about this, is that I don't know the experience of all of you around the table, but I can tell you right now, the experience that between Corey and I and Brad, we're gonna bring you recommendations that are best practices from jail, right? And then we're gonna tell you, here's what we would recommend doing. And it's going to be first cost dollars, but it's also gonna be the life cycle of your staff efficiency. I can't stress that enough to you right now. 28 million is a lot of money, but I'm gonna tell you right now, when you think about the staff that are gonna work within that facility for the next 30 to 50 years, $28 million will seem like nothing if you don't do this right. And you gotta have that picture, because when you see the big number on bricks and mortar, it's one piece of the puzzle. How are you going to efficiently function within that structure? And some of those key elements that I talked to you about, the location of where it is next to courts, how do we deal with the intake? All of those things are tied into that. So, answer your question, we're not gonna make decisions, we'll make recommendations. Those recommendations will come back to whether you guys have a standing committee that we report to, or whether you have an ad hoc committee. We've done it both ways. I encourage that while we're going through these design phases, that one of you people around the table, or a couple of you around the table, sit in the meetings. Because my feeling is, there's not many of you in here that are jail experts. By the time you get done going through there, you're gonna understand what the I'm serious about that, what the jail administrator and their staff go through. And then you can come back to this board and say, on behalf of all of my peers here, there was good logic put into this design. It works every time we do it. And I would stress that that's the case. Whoever draws the short straw, or whoever wants to volunteer, I would offer you to be at the table with us. I'm serious about that.
Mr. Undershoots.
Have you presented here before?
Yep. I was the one that recommended the master plan.
Yes, I remember that. I think it was you, Mr. Hooper, co-presented.
Any other questions?
The Trempealeau job, how long ago did you do that? And then could you tell us, how many beds you had there and?
Sure. It's a 78 bed facility that we're looking to complete October of this year. So when we got to Trumbull, they were talking about a jail for over 20 years. And when I got to the county board, I would say that it was probably 50-50 split down the middle of whether they wanted to build the jail at all, where does the jail get built? And we went through multiple iterations of what makes the most sense. And we settled on connecting that jail to the existing courthouse. We gobbled up a city street. We worked with the city to be able to make that work. We ran the numbers as to why that made sense. It's a 78 bed facility that can be double bunked to 99 beds. It's a justice center, so it has two fully juried courtrooms and one for a court commissioner. We're looking to turn that over in October. So, yeah, if you spend some time on there, the model that we would propose for your website is gonna be much like this, in regards to the data that would go in there, from the study and the phases that we work on, so.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
What was the total cost on that? And give us your website again for looking Trumbull County up.
TrumbullCountyJusticeCenter.com. You want me to spell Trumbull? Cause I don't know.
We got through it, sounded good. And what was their total?
44 million.
Okay.
Now, it was a justice center, so I don't want that number to scare you. And when I say justice center, that is both jail, that is, the sheriff's office, and the court suite. And the court suite wasn't just courtrooms, it's judges' chambers, it was a DA, we have child support there, clerk of courts, so, it's a different animal in regards to the scope of what you're proposing. But I will also tell you that we did that right when the whole pandemic was starting, and prices have jumped since we've been Trumbull, so just to let you know that.
When you say 44 million, that's 44 million of cost plus interest, or does that include interest costs?
Does not include interest, we're talking project cost. Your interest costs will come into play, so when we get through the phase of design, this phase of design, we'll get you a project cost. We will then work with the county administration to come back to your bond council. Bond council will then identify what is your recommended borrowing strategy. I've seen that borrowing strategy done multiple ways over the years. Whether you break it up into multiple borrowings and get it into bank qualified borrowings, I've seen the percentage drop by about 1%. What's happening right now in our world is that's not the case. The general obligation bonds have been more cost effective than a bank qualified borrowing. But to your point, the interest that's tied to that will be then forecasted at that point, based on the project cost that you decide to move forward with.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Meyer.
When we went through with Wold, I thought we ended up in the upper 20s with possibility of some of that money, hopefully, doing some work on the courthouse. Is that included in this at all, anywhere? Some remodifications to the courthouse, if it still works? Or are we strictly looking at?
Well, there will be modifications to the courthouse. I just don't know that it's going to be aligned with what you saw at the Wald study. I would ask that you let this, process play out. We'll definitely use that as the starting point in regards to what they did with their concept. There are some things in the wall study that we just need to do, put a little challenge with. If you look at the footprint of where they showed the jail, the footprint of the jail does not support the size that you need for a pod design. And a pod design is essential to make sure that it's staff efficient. So there are some elements in there. I know what you're referring to in regards to that model. So yeah, we'll understand or identify what those things were, and we'll show you what's included and what's not included as we go through those options.
Anyone else wish to speak? Have a comment? No one else? I guess that takes care of it.
I guess just to kind of give you what would happen moving forward, if you approve the process tonight, we then would want to identify what committee we would report to, right? Whether it is a standing committee or whether you create an ad hoc committee. And then we would start some design meetings, get those design meetings rolling. We typically report to a committee monthly in regards to an update. And then the county board, different counties are different. Some of them want me to report to them quarterly, others want to report to them monthly. So we would then keep you updated in regards to the progress of what's being done.
Okay, thank you. I guess we will vote on the resolution.
Well, do we wanna add what committee reports to before we do that? I guess I'd like to make an amendment to that report.
I guess Ash and I were just talking either that, or we can put that on the agenda for next month, creation of an ad hoc committee, or the assignment of the.
Can I make an amendment now? I guess I'd like to make an amendment that reports to the property committee on a monthly basis. I know some of the people here have day-to-day operations, but I think that county board should be involved in it too, and if we're starting soon, we should probably get a committee.
Yeah, he wants to have the report to the property committee.
So he wants to add a committee.
He wants them to report monthly to the property committee. That's his amendment.
So, for you note takers, it's gonna be add a, and be it further resolved that the, architect and Samuel's group shall report to the property committee.
That might be both of them. Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that in others that get too confused if they report to different committees, like,
Yeah.
that would be enough.
Yes, it would.
One second on that. Have a second. Any other discussion on that?
This is on the amendment only.
Right. Okay, vote on the amendment. You want it read back?
Please.
And be it further resolved that the architect and Samuel's group will report to the property committee monthly.
Okay, so you vote on it now.
Question is, if the board reporting to property monthly, do we need an ad hoc committee?
No, that would take the place of that at this juncture. So we just person.
Yes, 4 no, passed by majority vote.
Now in the resolution as amended, that includes that last,
Okay, you heard him. Vote on the resolution as amended. Yes, 4 no, passed by majority vote.
I mean, we gotta get to work.
Thanks, everyone, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Designated American Rescue Plan Act funds to be used for internal West Line project number 2. Need a motion and a second. We have a second.
And then let John, yeah, and then we'll have some guests.
So I'll start, and then if you guys, wanna add to it, so initially there was 7 sets of portable bleachers, approved out of ARPA funds for $40,000. And the vendor came back and they had made a mix up on their end, and it's gonna cost way more than that for each set of bleachers. Meanwhile, Charmaine was able to, procure some bleachers on auction, for the fair, and so they were respectfully asking to reallocate that $40,000 for concrete in the multi-purpose building, because there's a record number of pigs, that'll be at the fair this summer, and if they put them, they have to put them in the multi-purpose building. But without concrete in there, it's really going to stink up that building and make it hard to utilize it for other purposes such as weddings and other events. And $40,000 isn't enough to concrete the entire building, so property approved the allocation of the $40,000, and then when it came to finance, they decided to try to reallocate another $20,000 to concrete the entire building, so that we don't have a building that's partially concrete, partially clay. And Johnny Runstrom has crunched all the numbers on this, so it'll be clear that he can answer any questions.
Jess, from the fair board.
Do you have any questions, directing to me or Jess? I guess up to you guys.
How thick and what kind of reinforcing bar?
We're doing number 4 bar, 5 inches thick, 2 foot on center, so number 4 is 1/2 inch. That's pretty standard for everything.
Any other questions?
It's 150 by 50, 7,500 square feet total. 50, yeah.
Mr. Willingham, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering if someone could give me a number to reflect all of the ARPA funds that have been designated for various projects at the fairgrounds, just so we have a total number of dollars.
Well, it would be in that the original resolution would have all of those, all of the projects listed are in that, are.
Not having the original resolution before me, I'm wondering if someone could just.
January. I'll try to pull it up for you. January? Yeah, it's like the 3rd. Looks like including this would be just under $400,000, $389,664.70. Just under 390.
If with the additional 20,000.
What is it now?
Just under 390,000 with the additional, that includes that 20,000.
Just under 300. We had 290 for the.
Just under 390.
Just under 390. With the additional 20,000.
Oh, 290,000. 290. The plans for the bathrooms were 8,000. And then 7 sets of bleachers were 40,000. Help me out.
The grandstands, the fairgrounds electrical system.
Oh, yep.
There's like there's 5 of them that are all together at the bottom there, and then there's just 11,664.75 at the top.
For this sound system for the fairgrounds.
That one plus.
But no, we've only approved getting state plans for that.
Mr. Tater?
One of the reasons that we never put concrete on that floor in the first place was that it was felt that the animals would have a much better chance. They do have a better, footing, they got better footing on dirt than they do on concrete, so that's why we did that.
We're gonna have them do, like a medium broom on it, so it's not gonna be really rough for, you know, like a wedding or something like that. It's not gonna be finished though. It'll be a medium broom, just like what a sidewalk is, or even a barn aisle. So the hoof contact isn't an issue. We don't have to worry about it like getting worn down over time either, so.
You also suggested that, when we were gonna bring cattle in there, that it would sprinkle lime or sand on the floor, which typically makes footing a lot better too. You know, and then, once you're finished, you can broom it off or power wash it off.
The kids power wash everything. I believe it's like Monday after the fair, and anything with concrete gets power washed, so.
Any other questions? If not, vote no. Yes, 2 no, passed by majority vote. Okay, I need okay. Pulled ahead of me, thank you. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion on it? Jeremy, will you, give a 2-minute speech on it?
2 minutes? It's exactly 2 minutes tonight.
Set the timer for him.
I keep waiting for the timer to be set, so that won't offend me.
Here we go.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. I appreciate your participation and your looking out for the best interest of our county. We have a rare opportunity here, I think, with the events of my leaving the county and coming back. I think we've really had a discussion about ways that we can strengthen our department within human services. One of those, I think, starts with, at the top, is a deputy director position. I polled the area in reference to my counterparts in other counties. Most places have something that is less than a full-time employee that just can act as the human services director in the human services director's absence. The job description is up there for any questions that you have, but just a few things that I highlighted. The fiscal impact that we're looking at is 5 hours a month, up to 5 hours a month, 60 hours a year. I would ask that there is a $2,000 stipend for the annual person that is then selected. That averages out to $33 an hour, which is the average of our managerial staff at this point in time in human services. The cost is integrated into our AMSO, our agency management, support, and overhead, and so it's spread out between all of our departments, and we maximize our state funding. This process has been approved through our Human Services Board, it's been to personnel, significant questions at personnel, which were all good, and then probably the toughest task was to get it through the finance department, and then obviously this resolution here tonight. Why do we do this? Succession planning, the opportunity for cross-training. We're growing. Our human services to meet the needs of our consumers in Rusk County is growing, hence the resolution that I'll have for you next. We have 37 full-time employees. We have 17 part-time employees in our department. We want to continue assuring the continuity of care in these programs. This person would assist in strategic planning and evaluation of programs and staff. Specific duties that I've just kind of sketched out, which are a part of the job description in part, is budget preparation, employee management, fidelity of allowable cost manuals for all of our programming, which is a huge undertaking, is maximizing our dollars that are allowable and making sure that it's within the fidelity of the program. Department functioning, policy development, promoting awareness of agency services through speaking engagements, maximize funding streams, and like I said, strategic planning. The selection process is in there, is that I would first ask that we poll our existing managerial staff. I have 7 managers. I would like to poll them to see if any of them are interested. If they are, we would interview them and then select. If nobody from that group, I would ask to go through to the rest of the staff of the county to see if there's anybody that would be interested. And then if there wasn't, then we would go through a general recruitment. I say this every time that I come here, is that each department head should report to their committee and to this board advocating as to why their department and their programs are the most important. But I also take a stance that all county facets are important. We look at consumers in a holistic approach. And so even though I'm advocating for this tonight for my department, all of our departments are important throughout our county, because we do treat our consumers holistically and we need to work together. And so this would help strengthen our department within human services. That's what I have, less than 3 minutes, I think. And so I appreciate your consideration. This is very important. Not as important as my second one tonight, but this is very important, and I appreciate your consideration.
Any questions? Hearing none, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeremy, I'm wondering why you're proposing a stipend rather than just an hourly rate.
Super good question. So, in talking with Jamie, we're talking with Ashley, with the Carlson-Detman wage implementation, my first thought was, let's just maybe, poll the staff, select somebody, and then based on their Carlson-Detman wage, to, give them an extra step, which is 40 cents or 50 cents, whichever those steps turn out to be for that candidate. I think the suggestion was that this isn't a full-time employment. This is an add-on to an existing job description that is under the JDQ, and I think we arrived at the fact that a stipend would be the best mode of moving forward. You could probably say that much more eloquent, Jamie.
Well, with the tied, right, go ahead. It's not tied to their normal job duties. It's in that stipend would be allocated similarly to how Jeremy's wages are allocated right now. If it's one of the department heads, their wages as a department head for whatever department they're in are allocated based on what they're doing specific to their particular department. And this is more big picture oversight on the HHS, so it would be allocated across all of the grants in HHS, not just adult services or children and family or economic support or whichever one of the 7 department heads potentially would take the position.
And it's 60 hours a year versus the 2015 that they're putting in specifically to each department within their scope.
So this is an additional 5 hours a month to their current schedule, or are you joining the, it looks to me like you're adding some additional duties to a job description, which I have no objection to, that would then create an additional level of responsibility, which then might justify, some remuneration, but,
I think to answer your question, the 5 hours is in addition, up to 5 hours a month is in addition. I think it's gonna be more than 60 hours a year when we look at things, but I think the stipend process is why that would be more appropriate to cover that, because they'll still have their regular responsibilities that are charged off to their regular budget, but then in addition, I'm gonna ask them to do 5 hours of the job description type duties.
And this would be an exempt employee too, so that kind of factors in too.
Any other questions? Now, you can vote on it now.
Yeah.
Tom's got one?
Oh,
How much was the stipend?
$2,000.
2,000. Okay, that's it.
any other questions now? Now, you can vote on it now. Passed by majority vote, 19. You wanna give your other presentation?
Thank you very much, everybody. That is a huge deal. You just made my night. Thank you. Okay, here we go. You're letting me.
We need a motion and a second to bring it up.
And you're, for the record, you are skipping temporarily 5 and going directly to 6 as long as Jeremy's up at the podium.
Is that okay? Totally what you did. Okay? All right. Okay, for your consideration here, I'm just gonna give you a brief history as to what's happened here with Children's Long-Term Support, the Birth to 3 program, and our Disability Benefits Specialist in the ADRC. Children's Long-Term Support is the earliest intervention for physically disabled, mentally ill, and developmentally disabled kiddos and their families, okay? Historically speaking, very brief history. In 2020, I made a proposal, came to this board through the same process to separate the Birth to 3 program and the Children's Long-Term Support. That was a combined position at that point in time. We split that. The Children's Long-Term Support became a full-time employee. That person is still with us. The Birth to 3 is a contracted position. It's very important. It works with CISA, same kinds of things, early intervention for kiddos that are having difficulty. So 2020, we split that. 2021, it was effective. Things have been going very well in that, with that split. At this point in time, my ask is very similar. We have a Children's Long-Term Support and Disability Benefits Specialist combined position. The chart that you can see in front of you is a snapshot of the explosion of the Children's Long-Term Support Program that also encompasses our Comprehensive Community Services Program. I've been talking to you guys and gals for a long time about the integration of these programs, and this is really the best snapshot as of this morning that I can give you as to the support of splitting the Children's Long-Term Support and Disability Benefits Specialist. So, 2017, 2016, we had a wait list in Human Services for Children's Long-Term Support. We capped the case at 20, give or take, and as a result, the split position, Children's Long-Term Support would have 15 cases. The other person, the Disability Benefits Specialist, this position we're talking about right now, would have 5 cases along with their ADRC responsibilities. The state of Wisconsin made a decision that there should be no wait list in the state of Wisconsin for the program for Children's Long-Term Support. So in 18, you can start to see where we were generating a great deal of revenue. Is the yellow line up there on the top. We had $92,000 in revenue through Medicaid for case management. We had about 35 cases that were being that were screened, I believe, for that were being functionally determined eligible. The blue line there will show you that the children that were enrolled, I think there's 25 or 28 in that 2018, and you can see how that's grown. And then the red line on the bottom is our co-occurring Children's Long-Term Support Comprehensive Community Services. So what's happened is the Children's Long-Term Support position, as we speak right now, that is a combined position with the Disability Benefits Specialist, is carrying a caseload themselves of 30 Children's Long-Term Support cases. That used to be 5. Okay, we have 80 children in the blue line
almost 81 children now that are enrolled in this program. And so because there's no wait list, this dual position that I'm talking about tonight is carrying a caseload of 30 to 31 kiddos, plus they have a disability benefits specialist caseload of 60 as we speak, okay? And so we've for a lot of years, as you can see on that graph, we've been working toward this being 2 separate full-time positions. And so, same thing, I've talked to finance about this, I've talked to personnel about this, talked to my board about this. I've been showing them this graph for a long, long time, and we're just at the point right now where we have to make a decision about splitting this position. Couple fiscal impacts that I want to share with you. So, and it gets a little, I guess, combined here a little bit, but the difference between the fiscal impact that will occur is it's $150,000 for the 2 positions as a full-time employee each. Total is $150,130. The current cost is $62,800 of the employee that is doing this right now, and so our fiscal impact is about $87,330. Okay, those costs, as I break those down, will be greatly reimbursed through Medicaid case management in both positions. The disability benefits specialist, when they are advocating for somebody, enrolling for disability or helping them with other EDRC related services, or transitioning to managed care as they get to 17 and a half, will generate Medicaid revenue through their case management. That's called Medicaid drawdown. That happens, and we receive that revenue. Same thing happens with the children's long-term support position. When that person is working with every one of those kiddos and generating case management time, they will receive, like you see where that yellow line will show how annually how much we are generating in revenue. Very key to the children's long-term support revenue. You can see in 2022 at the end of the year we had $80,300. We already have $25,000 in generated revenue in the first 2 months of 2023, and so we're on pace to have a really good year with serving the kids and the families. So that's my ask. This is very important. It's equally as important tonight because our current person that is doing this position gave their notice and they're leaving us at the end of May. And so I'm in a recruitment mode right now to replace this position, and I cannot think of a person that's going to apply for a job when I say when you walk in the door, you're gonna have 90 cases in 2 different programs that are gonna take you a couple of years to learn. So it's gonna be very difficult. So what we will do from a fiscal standpoint, we've created our own separate budget for the people in the room like Jamie that talk about all of those kinds of numbers. We've created a separate CLTS budget, so we know exactly what the cost and all of the revenues coming in. That's under the 250, our 250 account. It's very important that we can forge ahead with hopefully two separate full-time employees here. Questions? I ran through that super quick. Those are the nuts and bolts of this.
Start date. Immediately.
Yesterday. What we would do is, if this is approved tonight, this would then afford me the opportunity to work with Ashley. We already have the job descriptions for each of them. They're already JDQs. They're already on the wage scale. We'd be able to recruit separately. I do have an appointment for those on personnel. Get ready, I'm coming to see you again. Brace yourself, get some sleep. I'm gonna come see you next week about, if we've never looked at an internal process. Say we have somebody an employee of ours that maybe would be interested in doing something else. Maybe they just come to the end of their rope and something. And so do we have the opportunity to offer this internally to then be able to move somebody into something that they may be
that are suited in doing, they might be happier in doing. So I need to go to personnel to see if that is a case that we can maybe do. Otherwise, if this is approved, we're gonna do separate FTE recruitments, and we will go after candidates that they can do this job. It's very important. It's early intervention. It's a continuum of care. It's very important for our youth, for our future.
Makes sense to me.
Make sense to you? Thank you. All right.
I'm just curious, the person that's leaving, would they rethink their, their decision if they knew another person was gonna get hired?
So, we've had this discussion. This person is very good at what they did. They really like the CLTS side of it. They are offered more money to go to another county to work a region, and they're taking it. And I ask this person every day, have you reconsidered? And I go out of my way to go to their office to say, hey, you want to think about it? And they're very, they made the decision they're gonna move on to a different, but it wasn't because it was all money. I'll just say it what it is. It was the rate of pay. The person loves doing both of these positions. So it wasn't that they're quitting because they have 90 cases. They have some other things that need attention.
Any other questions? If not, you can vote now. 19 yes, passed by majority vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. I did say to Jamie this morning that one of my other things is, if you want to critique a system, you always have to give solutions. And so she sent out a thing today on WRS, and I said that I would forego my WRS retirement if that would fund these programs. So thank you for approving it the other way. So,
I told them it's not optional.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll now do resolution number 5. Motion and a second. We got a motion? We got a second. Any discussion on it? Yeah, okay. Okay, that's all it's gonna be. Okay, go ahead, Phil.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, if you guys can all remember, last year, there was some stuff that came before the full board about being out of compliance for logging roads and stuff, and ATVs crossing streams and all that stuff. Well,
Hey, Phil?
Yeah.
Would you use a mic, please?
Yeah.
You're awful hard.
Let me just speak up louder. I'll try to speak louder. Alright, so if you all remember, last spring, there was some stuff that was brought before the county board about, being in violation of some BMPs on some of the logging roads. And we sent it back to forestry to create an ad hoc committee to figure out which trails could be left open and which trails would have to be closed because, there's illegal stream crossings or it was a waterway or anything that would have violated any of our BMPs. So, in the meantime, the ad hoc committee has come up with a map that is the roads that we know we can keep open without violating BMPs. I mean, clearly as time goes on and we have more time to investigate and go out in the field and look at more of these trails, we might have to shut some down, we might have to open a few more up. But in the last forestry committee, we gave direction unanimously to the forestry department to put some open signs on all of these trails because we're working on an ordinance that will both satisfy the DNR's interest in us violating our BMPs as well as keeping the public's best interest in mind. So we passed this unanimously that we need to sign all these open, because that's part of the ordinance, is only signed, trails that are signed open will be open to public once we pass the ordinance. So there's approximately 646 signs that we need to buy to put on these trails. And being that this has not been done before, it's not something that we just had an extra 25 grand sitting around, we need to come up with the money. So I thought an ARPA request was it was a good use for that. And if you think about the $25,000, if you consider that if we do nothing on this ordinance and we lose the $20 million that in the next year, 10 years, we're projected to get from carbon credits, it's really a small number compared to that. And at the same time, this also satisfies the public's interest in the public's land. So if we could approve the 25,000 for approximately 646 signs, this is what Jared came up with, an approximation. As he gets out there and starts signing them, he may find a couple more. But I went I rounded it up to 25,000. So I think even if we're a grand or two short, we could find it in another budget and make it up. But this will at least get us on the right track. It'll show the public we got some skin in the game, because the biggest complaint I've heard from the public is, well, we're gonna show our support for your ordinance, and then you're not gonna follow through on your part. If we show that we're willing to put a little skin in the game, I really think this will help for our public support, and then we can help marry the two together, you know, what the DNR requires from us and what the public requires from us as stewards of their land.
Mr. Taylor?
It troubles me a little bit. Finances, we know nothing about this. And this board doesn't know anything about any ordinances either. $25,000 is a lot of signs. Like I said, we don't know what the ordinance is. Typically, a department head would come to finance and tell us that, you know, we gotta do this project, but we don't have enough funding. So we have not heard anything like that. So I think you're rather preliminary with this request. As far as signs in the woods, you gotta be kidding. If you got some rednecks out there that wanna go from point A to point C, and you got a sign at B, they're gonna take that sign and throw it in the brush and go right on through.
That's why they're signed open and not closed. If there's no sign, they're automatically closed.
Where's the ordinance?
Phil?
So the reason why I didn't bring this to finance and to property is because, and we can certainly go that route, but time is sort of the essence here, as we gave the forestry department until July 1st to have these signed open. And I mean, personally, if we wanna tell the DNR to pound sand and we get our 6-shooters and ride off in the distance, I mean, if that's the direction the board gives us, you know, that's fine, but I'm looking at the fiscal impact of not taking any action. So I think we really need to take action, and I think we do owe it to the public to show them that we're willing to put a little skin in the game too, before we go passing ordinances and not have any skin in the game.
Mr. Stout?
I feel that these the same trails that be used by snowmobiles, a lot of them now.
That's separate deals, yeah.
So then if the snowmobile wanted, we'd have to do the same thing.
They mark their own trails already. Snowmobile clubs mark
Yeah,
their
I'm
trails.
sure they ain't got signs like that all.
I don't know that much about the snowmobile.
Our other county ordinances covers the snowmobiling.
Mr. Raven?
Oh, yes, I'd just like to ask Phil, you know, this map that you talked about, the revisions of the open and closed and whatever, is there a copy of that map somewhere we could see that you know, I don't know if the general public is seeing, you know, did you open some roads that were closed or close some roads that were open?
So right now, how it stands is every, logging road in the county is open. There's no ordinance that has any teeth that would keep these, ATVs from just driving across any road. So this map was created by that ad hoc committee that said, these are the ones we'd like to keep open, and we feel that it would be appropriate and still be within our BMPs. And
So you haven't came to a conclusion on what could be closed or should be closed?
They came with original maps, and I don't know if you have the maps that Nick Standick has, if you would be able to put them up on the screen if they want. But that would be a starting point. We gotta start somewhere, right?
Yeah,
So,
right.
so as time goes on, somebody drives out there and they see that we're driving through a lake out there somewhere or something.
Right.
We'd have to shut that trail down because it would just violate our practices. Or as time comes up, somebody say, you know, I think this trail would be allowed to be open because I think that it would qualify to be open. We'd open and close more trails from there, but a starting point before, otherwise if we come up with an ordinance, if we vote on the ordinance today and we don't have signs already open, the ordinance would just shut everything down. And we're gonna have people upstairs saying, what are you doing, shutting everything down? So we need to get ahead of this instead of behind it, and that's what happened to us last time, is we weren't ahead of it, we were behind it. So we need to do something to start. This is our starting point. These maps show the starting point that the public came up with and decided, working with land and water conservation and forestry, and said, these are the trails that we feel we can keep open for starters.
Right.
And as we go from there, as we're field verifying stuff, we might close them down, we might open some more up, but this is our starting point.
Mr. Chairman,
See that day.
may I clarify a couple things or questions?
You know, with the crowd we had here.
I think that if this ordinance comes before the board, I think the people who spoke against it last time will speak for it, and I think the people who spoke for it last time will also speak for it, because it does both things. It helps conserve the land,
Right.
but it also provides public access. It's just responsible public access. So I'm just trying to get ahead of,
Right.
rather than wait, and July 1st is a pretty important deadline for a lot of the ATV users, especially, so if we wait until another month before it goes through committees, I'm worried that, we could lose some public faith in this happening.
Just a little clarification, when Phil's talking about trails, actually the way they're listed is woods access roads. They're not made ATV trails, that nothing's changing there. Also, one more point of clarification, the ad hoc committee was apprised of, I think, 7 members from the public, 7 or 8 members from the public, and 2 from the forestry committee, and Nick Stadnick, Johnny Runstrom sat in on several, Jared and Dane sat in on several. So just so the board knows who the ad hoc committee was comprised of, excuse me. And also the fact that when Phil is talking about trails, it's actually woods access roads, not already made ATV trails.
Mr. Wedwick?
Question is, what percentage is going to be open and what percentage closed?
Percentage, you have?
Well, I can't give you a percentage, but what they shot for was access every certain amount of distance into the county forest. Most places, they strive to have access at least every mile to get into the county forest for a hunter or whatever. Some of the lower grounds, it didn't work out that way, but for the most part, that's what they shot for.
So we don't know, I mean, 90% open, 10% open?
I mean, so I don't The actual ordinance and what's gonna be open and not open, that's gonna be come back at a different date and time. I think if we can limit the discussion to the resolution on hand, because I think you'll get a lot more people here talking about that, and again, it wasn't on the agenda for the actual ordinance itself.
Mr. Willingham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems to me that, while we probably are sort of bypassing the process of the Finance Committee approving and the ARPA funds, et cetera, there does seem to be some compelling argument for getting going. You know, I think all of us are starting to realize how important getting this ordinance in place in order to resolve the issues with DNR. It's, you know, there's a huge amount of dollars at stake. And so it seems to me, I don't know what the time frame is for when the department can even start to put these signs up, but I'm sure there's a time that it takes to order them and get them, you know, and a certain amount of labor cost involved in putting them up. It looks to me like this is something that we probably would show good faith towards the process of getting the ordinance in place, getting the solution to this problem that's been a serious one. So I'm inclined to support the resolution, even though we're kind of bypassing the approval process, and with all apologies to the Finance Committee, I think we should do it.
Anyone else? Mr. Kudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious, where are we at with remedying the problem areas that the DNR was concerned about?
I believe that we still have an ordinance that's pretty good. There's one other resolution we'll probably pass with that on say, but I would tend to think, no, I'm not gonna promise you, but I almost think that at the next forestry committee, we would probably pass an ordinance with another resolution that helps protect the public. And, I'm not gonna promise that, but I would think we're probably a month away from getting something done that the jury is.
So they get agreed that, so that they approve our
certification.
Certification?
Yeah.
It might take a while for the DNR to approve it, though.
Well, I mean, we've been in talks with the DNR the whole time too.
Well, they're in with us. I mean, they're right on our tails. They're the one.
They're chasing us, yeah.
The problem is they're sitting in this building and they're pounding us every time we turn around. So we have to address this and take care of this and get them out of the building. If we don't, we're just gonna keep hanging around. We just lose everything at the end.
Mr. Schneider.
I'm thinking we're hopefully gonna bring this back from the next forestry committee, the resolution, the next month's meeting, I would think. Seems like we're really close to it.
I would think the ordinance at the next meeting would be my guess.
And one of the things about doing this now is we're within a time frame. I think we're scheduled to get our first payment in September from carbon credits, right? In the beginning, that's what they were talking about at one time.
In the beginning, but now not so much.
Now, yeah. Now that they've already contacted DNR and DNR says you're not following it, who knows what that's gonna do. So the sooner we can get things looking like we're going forward, the better it's gonna be. It's not gonna keep everybody happy, myself included, other people included on both sides of the issue, but let's get going with it.
Any other questions or comments? Vote on it now.
We gotta wait for Bob.
Gotta wait for Bob. Waiting for you, Bob. Go ahead.
Can you vote on
On science.
18 yes, 1 no, passed by majority vote. What do we got Okay. Got a motion on, the declaration, disaster declaration, we got a second. Any discussion on it?
Oh, okay, so, we have a disaster declaration for flooding, for the event starting on April 12th. Hall had a meeting with the state this morning, and there is still no end date to this declaration, because we're facing the impacts of the flooding. The board chair signed the emergency declaration on the 14th, and statutorily, the board needs to ratify the disaster declaration.
Any questions? If not, you can vote no. I hope it. 19 yes, passed by majority vote. We got a closed session.
So you gotta read this whole thing.
Do I have to wait for them to leave?
Or read that, and then you'll get a motion on it.
Okay, closed session, announced by chair. Use of Rusk County Hospital Nursing Home Building and Marshville Clinic buildings after termination of Marshville Clinic lease with Rusk County pursuant to Wisconsin's Patch 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
19.851. C.
What did I say?
C.
So we tell you gotta leave. Take all your
The
stuff.
motion can be an open vote, huh? They can vote on it. Vote. Closed session.
Okay, vote to go into a session. That's my majority vote, we're in closed session. There's nothing to do. Nope. Any announcements at all? Oh.
If anybody wants to go to the conference, they have to let me know so that I can, cause May 1st is when I'm gonna book the rooms.
You got me.
I have you down, I have Phil, Terry Wedwig, Jamie, myself, Tom Gudo, Mark Schmidt, his wife, Randy, Phil, and Mary. Anybody else, just, okay.
Any other announcements? Not a motion to adjourn would be in order.